Development. To start off, I'd like to ask members the record this evening, starting with the member to my left.
Ron Bondrus, MLA Techo.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to turn the floor over to members joining us virtually, starting with MLA Semler.
Lisa Semler, MLA Inuvik Twin Lakes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Rylan Johnson, MLA for Yellowknife North.
Thank you so much, members, and thank you for joining us this evening. Also joining us are committee staff. We have Mr. Toby Kruger, Law Clerk, Mahalia Yakalaya Newmark, Committee Advisor, Taylor Maxwell, Committee Support Officer Intern, as well as Michael Ball, Committee Clerk. So good evening and welcome to myself, Caitlin Cleveland, MLA Cam Lake. Good evening and welcome to the Standing Committee on Social Development, who is currently reviewing Bill 47, an act to amend the Employment Standards Act No. 2, which is available on the Legislative Assembly website. Bill 47 was referred to the Standing Committee for review on March 28, 2022, and amends the Employment Standards Act to create a new statutory holiday which will fall on September 30th each year, to be known as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. This bill also includes consequential amendments to the Interpretation Act and the Public Service Holidays Order made under the Public Service Act. I will now invite the Honourable R.J. Simpson, Minister of Justice, to deliver any opening remarks on Bill 47. Following the Minister's remarks, committee members may make comments or pose questions on the bill. Minister Simpson, I'd like to invite you to please introduce yourself and your staff for the record and proceed with any opening remarks that you may have on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you and the members of the committee about Bill 47, an act to amend the Employment Standards Act No. 2. Today, I'm joined by my witnesses, Andrea Giesbrick, Director, Labour Development and Standards, and Sherry Girock, Legislation Division, Department of Justice. Madam Chair, on June 3rd, 2021, Federal Bill C5 received royal assent, establishing a federal statutory holiday called the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th each year. The holiday was established in response to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's calls to action, which called upon the federal government in collaboration with Indigenous peoples to establish as a statutory holiday a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation to honor survivors, their families, and communities, and ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. On August 25th, 2021, the GNWT issued an order to mark September 30th as a holiday for the Territory's public service, and in fall 2021 began consultation and engagement with Indigenous governments, industry stakeholders, businesses, labour groups, nonprofits, community governments, and the public on potential amendments to the Employment Standards Act that would establish September 30th as an NWT-wide statutory holiday. Results from the engagement indicated overall support for an amendment to the Act that would establish the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation as a statutory holiday in the NWT. Bill 47 adds the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th to the list of statutory holidays listed in Part 3 of the Act, and also indicates consequential amendments to the Interpretation Act and the current Public Services Holiday Order to ensure alignment across legislation in the NWT and extend the holiday for members of the Territorial Public Service going forward. I am pleased to bring forward these amendments to support the continued public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools and our government's role in the reconciliation process. Thank you, Madam Chair. This concludes my opening remarks. I would be happy to answer any of committee's questions.
Thank you very much, Minister Simpson, and thank you to your staff for joining us here this evening. Committee members, before we move on, does anybody have any questions or comments that they would like to make this evening? Hearing none, I know that committee is very interested, Minister Simpson, in the potential for meaningful education and the potential for meaningful reconciliation, as well as the Territory moves forward in recognizing September 30th. Committee, I believe we are now concluded with this stage of our review, and we have received no submissions from the public on Bill 47, and there have been no requests to appear before committee this evening. So does committee agree to proceed to a clause-by-clause review of Bill 47, an act to amend the Employment Standards Act No. 2? Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, committee. Committee, please turn to page 1 of the bill. Clause 1, does committee agree?
Agreed.
Clause 2, does committee agree? Clause
Agreed.
3, does committee agree with Clause 3?
Agreed.
Clause 4, does committee agree?
Agreed.
Thank you, committee. Does committee agree that Bill 47, an act to amend the Employment Standards Act Number 2, is now ready for consideration in committee of the whole?
Yes.
MLA Bonnet Rouge?
Okay. I move that Bill 47, an act to amend the Employment Standards Act, Number 2, be reported to the Assembly as ready for consideration in committee of the whole. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Bonnet Rouge. The motion is in order. To the motion.
Question.
Question has been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
All those opposed? Motion is carried. Bill 47, an act to amend the Employment Standards Act Number 2, will be reported to the Assembly as ready for consideration in committee of the whole. Thank you, Mr. Minister Simpson, and thank you to all of your staff who have joined us here this evening. We appreciate your time. Members, this concludes the public portion of our meeting this evening. Can I please get a motion to move in camera? Thank you, Mr. Bonnet Rouge, and thank you to the public who have taken the time to join us here this evening as well. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.